are good to start. Welcome everyone back to Zoom. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes from last month, August 17th. It's been distributed and everybody's taken a good look at it. And so I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Nope. Excellent. So the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. And we will get right to the first case, which is Eugene Garland. Is there anyone appearing on that case, 38 Hudson Avenue?
If you're, okay, yes, there is somebody here.
Okay, great.
Jean? Okay, there he is. Okay.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, my
Oh,
Lord.
good. We were getting nervous. This wasn't going to work.
Essentially, I guess you have to join as a panelist, not as an attendee.
All righty. Well, welcome. Why don't you tell us what you've got?
Sure. Well, we have we live over on Hudson Avenue.
Yes.
Hudson View. It's right near East Sunnyside, if not in East Sunnyside. Postage size lots, narrow lots, homes that were built prior to current zoning laws. And our house is actually 10-foot setback, which is the required side setback. And we had a central air installed. And we put the central air condenser within that setback. And the only way, well, I can't say the only way, but the way to remedy that would be to either get a zoning variance or to move it to the rear of the home. And in the lot more off the sideline setback, side yard setback. And that would be fine in terms of zoning, but it would kind of infringe upon not only our outdoor living, because that's where we spend our time when the weather's nice, but also each of the homes that are adjacent to us on each side. And if you look at the application that I submitted, you can see that I have letters from each of my neighbors that own homes on each side, essentially stating that it's in the best place possible given the house and where the homes are set on each lot, and where their decks and patios are. And so that's the reason I'm here tonight.
Okay. So the air conditioning, it was approved. You were allowed to put the air conditioner in, but it was put in, the condenser was put in the wrong, it was put in the front or the rear?
So is there a way for me to share the screen?
Yep.
Okay. Where would that be?
There is a just at the bottom of your screen.
Oh, share screen. Okay, hold on. All right. Okay, just one sec. Tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the application. This is the letter from Ed, rejecting the current location.
Right.
This is the reason I set forth. I just verbally told you that.
Right.
What I did add are the two items on the bottom, which is, when it's not nice out, we use that space back there as parking. So I think that could be detrimental having a condenser there.
Right.
And then also financial hardship. It's just not a good time for me to move it. But if you take a look, here's the
Okay,
plot
right.
plan.
Yeah,
All right, so let me get my bearings here. This is the street here. Do you see my cursor or no?
Yes.
yes,
You do?
yeah.
Okay, great.
we can.
So this is my house, it's a
Yep.
cape.
Yep.
This is the current location, the green.
Okay, now I'm
The
remembering.
yellow is where we could move it so that it would be within the setback.
Okay,
If you take a look, right now 77 inches, I think that's 6'5" off of the sideline. The house itself is 10 feet.
Mhm.
And the chimney is 8 feet. So this is really the best location for it, because not only, do you have some plantings here, and I'll show you in the photo, you also have the chimney that kind of shields it from the streetscape.
can you just point out on your map, sort of just for us, where your neighbors are?
Sure. So each house,
Mhm.
the neighbors here,
Okay,
similar size house, a little bigger here, I would think, on this side. And each of them have outdoor living in the back, as we do. And you'll see, if you look at here's the letter from Joe.
Mhm.
He's on 35 Hudson, same kind of thing. It's going to be a noise, it's going to be visible, etc. Same thing here with Ron. And so here's a good indication of it right here. So this is the back of my house here. This is the location, you can see offset about 4 feet from the corner of the home here. This is where the condenser would sit. Clearly straight line visible to my neighbor's deck, right? And then this is the other side. This is where it would sit, straight line visible to my neighbor's deck. And of course, our outdoor living area here for the summer, fall and spring. Wintertime, we use it as parking. That's where it currently is now. Again, so chimney is 8 feet off the line.
Yep.
The house itself is 10, and the condenser is 6'5".
Those were my questions. Any questions from any other board members?
I have no questions.
Artie, you're on mute. Can we?
I am?
No, Artie is.
Oh,
Sorry.
oh.
I think. At least I'm not hearing him. Oh, it's funny.
Marty must be on mute if we're not hearing him.
And the screen is not showing him on mute, and yet.
Marty's never mute.
He's speaking and I can't hear him.
Yeah, and he's not on mute. I can see on my screen. That's so strange.
Did we hear him earlier, Sarah, before we were officially? No.
I think he's trying to get back on.
Yeah.
While we wait for Artie, does anybody else have any questions or concerns? Okay, let's just give Artie a minute and see, because he did clearly had something to say.
Sure.
He might have just been telling a joke like usual.
Yeah, well, he might have just been, that's for sure. He might have just been telling a joke. But it's going to be a long, we need Artie on. Hi, you there? Yeah, for some reason you do not have audio. Artie, you want to, let me see if I can call you and we can figure out a way to hear what you're saying.
He can call in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Number.
what we did last time, as I recall.
Right. Yep, it is.
But I
Yeah.
wonder why that. Yeah.
Yep.
The zoning board gods have struck him down.
Oh, here. Okay, call me. Call me on my, you have my cell phone number, don't you? Here, I'm gonna message it to you. Let me send it.
You guys have a long agenda tonight?
Yes, we do. Okay, Artie, I'll just give you my number. It's 914-564-9842. 9766.
Well, the number to call in to get on the zone is in the,
We
The
could do
zone
that
material.
too, yeah, but it's also easy for him to just call me. I think that works. Okay, I got it.
that I'm not the only one that has technical.
Yeah.
problems.
Hello, Artie, how are you? Okay, great. So, yep, so what do you have for us? Here, let me. Yeah. Artie, why don't you call in rather than be on Zoom? Do you know what I mean? Then I think we can just hear what you're saying. Great. Okay, so he will give us a call.
Since he's calling in, he might be coming in as an attendee. Can you just, I'm just making one request of just to stop sharing the screen for just a second, because I'm actually at a different computer and I can't see the list of attendees at the moment.
Yeah.
Sure, let me.
I'm
see.
sorry.
No worries. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anybody calling in just yet.
Hello? Okay. You sure? Okay, any other ones you have any particular feelings on before I let you go? No. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, bye. Okay, Artie says he cannot get through, so we should just go on without him. So, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I would just, if no one else has any comments, I think I will make a motion to approve. I know, I see this as a fairly, a fairly minor variance, and I don't have a real problem with it, so I'll make a motion. Would anybody like to second that motion?
I'll
Second,
second it, yes.
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
I
Easy
can't
going.
really- Yeah, I'm not seeing everybody on the screen. So is there anybody opposed? Nope. All right. Well, then I would say that we will be sending out your letter with the variance and you are approved.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. You guys have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So let's just get our next case here. We have, the next one is O'Dwyer and Keat. Do we have anybody from O'Dwyer and Keat?
Yes, there's somebody here.
Okay, great.
There we go. Okay, you can hear us?
Yes, hi. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hello?
So,
We have almost the exact same variance needs as Jean did. So we are installing a heat pump unit in our house, and we're not looking for retroactive, we're looking to install it. So that's the only, I think, difference between us and Gene is we haven't put it in yet.
Condenser units going on the side of the house. The
Mhm.
alternative is put them on the back of the house, but side is where we would like. And as with them, there's a, the clearance, the setback to the property line is not sufficient, so hence here we are.
And this is our first meeting, so we're probably a little bit less prepared than it seemed like Gene was.
We don't have a slideshow for you or anything, unfortunately.
Okay.
I hope you have the packets in
That's
front
all
of you.
right. Sorry, I think we were underprepared. At the heat pump units, they're brand new. They're 55 decibels, so they're not, they're about the equivalent of a conversation, they said, so they're not as loud as the traditional AC unit. Yeah.
Okay. And this is just an encroachment, not issue, coverage.
Right.
So have the neighbors notified?
Yes, we sent out to everyone within the 200 feet. We sent the registered mail. We have the receipts. We sent them in.
Is the unit going to be put, if you're facing your house, is the unit going to be to the right or the left?
To the right as you face the house.
Okay. I thought when I went to visit the house that you had some tubing coming out on the left side, which is why I was wondering if that was the side.
Yeah, the lines come down. There's going to be lines on both sides of the house, and they can go into the basement, and then from the basement, we can send them anywhere. We're going to send them all over. And that's the side of the house with the, the electric comes in there.
Yeah, so they've already put the tubing in on the side. We don't want the condenser units. And that's going to dive into the house, go under the house, and then come out on the side we do want the condenser units.
So are there any other questions? I think there's a neighbor to speak. But any questions from board members? All right, so why don't we hear the neighbor?
I'm sorry, I don't have the application on me. How much what is the extent of the variance? What is the percentage variance requested?
I'm going to let someone who has the packet in front of them answer that,
I
hopefully.
think it's supposed to have 10 feet, right?
I'm going to let someone with the packet in front of them answer it. It's something like 10 foot involved,
And we only have
7 foot
7.
involved.
Yeah, we only have 7.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Does anyone have the packet in front of them? Is it mentioned somewhere? This is on our, our contractor put this together, so we are the clueless ones here. We're just the homeowners.
So if I'm reading it correctly, but I'm not sure I'm totally right. It looks like it might be 7.4 feet currently.
Can say that again? Somehow everything's breaking up here.
Yeah, I'm getting feedback too. I believe it's 7.4 feet from the property line right now. And there's an indication that the unit will protrude another 10 to 12 inches.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Thank you.
Is there a neighbor who'd like to speak?
Yes, I'll allow her to speak. It's Leo Specht.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, I happen to be the next door neighbor, and coincidentally, I'm also one of the leaders on the Rivertown's Energy Smart Homes campaign, which happens to be trying to encourage people in Irvington to get air source heat pumps for their heating and cooling. And while Arthur and Sam's request is not part of this particular program, I did wonder if you all might consider being a little bit more lenient for allowing people to put air source heat pumps on the outside. They're kind of rectangle rather than square, so they tend to be a little bit more streamlined. And it also enables a homeowner not to have polluting sources of energy for their heating and cooling. So it's really a better choice. It helps New York State achieve our Climate Smart Community Protection Act goals for reduced emissions. It's been signed on by our mayor and village administration. It's a village supported program. So again, although these folks are not asking for anything from that program, I do ask your favor in considering heat pumps favorably, where they won't cut down on aesthetics any more than an air conditioner condenser would. Very often, I think they cut down on aesthetics less. And this particular one faces I believe, the commercial building on Main Street, which is mixed use residential and business. But it's, probably a, reasonable choice for where to put these. I happen to live next door to Arthur and Sam as well. So I think their choice looks reasonable.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let me just ask you, why is it located where you're putting it rather than behind the house or something like that? Is there a reason why you need to locate it where you are putting it? Just because it does require a variance, and we'd rather you didn't ask for a variance unless there's a really good reason to need it.
Well, as I said, that is what our contractor calls the dead side of the house. It's got the electrical and the steps down the basement entrance, and all of that sort of utility stuff is already sort of on that side. It's a nice flat side. You'll notice from one of the pictures we included there that we've got a window AC unit already sticking out on that side as well. Whereas in the back, there's more sort of irregularity, I guess, back there. It would be hard to find a nice clear spot. And if we did.
It also has to do with our basement itself. The back of the house is it's one of these Rivertown houses where it's all rock underneath the house. And so it's not a flat surface. There's no electricity or plumbing back there. And so it's like, you go into a room and it's dark and there's rocks everywhere. And so they would have to go through that room to get to the back of the house. Whereas if it's on the side that we want, all of the electricity and plumbing is already on that side. That's part of it.
Okay. Are there any questions from any other board members? Anybody have any?
Yeah, so I'm still a little confused because the variance, they're actually asking for two, right? Encroachment into the side yard and encroachment into the front yard. And I have no idea what's going in the front yard.
Neither do I.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything in the front yard.
But the variance is for variance in the front yard.
I'm not aware of that. Also, I know when we originally filed it, we had filed it for interpretation because we didn't know we needed to say variance. And I think it was amended after that, but it should have only been for the side. Nothing's going in the front. We don't want variance in the front, as far as I know. You can strike that if that's possible.
Is it possible that just because of the setback that this is considered both a portion of the side yard is also considered the front yard?
That is. I don't know if that's what it is, but that does often happen in Irvington. We have sort of funny lots that end up being both front and side.
But we're talking about the back corner of that side. Still, I don't even think it's the front of that side. I think it's the back of that side. So I don't know why it says front.
Okay. We can always just approve it however we want to. So we can always just approve it for the side yard if that's what we want to do. Any other questions from anybody? All right, then I will make a motion to approve. Again, I think this is a pretty modest request. Do I have a second? Can I second?
Second.
Okay.
what motion to improve, are we giving them both, or are we just?
No,
doing
I'm
one
gonna,
at a
I'm gonna
time?
state it as a side yard.
Side yard, okay.
And as, you know, it'll be approved on the papers that they've submitted. So that would just be on the side yard.
Okay.
So I say yes, Rosie,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Judd. Great. Charlie,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Okay, you are approved. I will send out a letter this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty, so Searle and Rudenstein, I believe, Palliser Road. You are on, you're on mute. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, is this okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eva Buhasra. I'm an architect, and I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Searle and Rudenstein in their application for an extension to an existing deck. I will explain the situation, and I will share my screen. Before I do that, I just would like to show that this in fact is the setting of the project and the reason for the variance. We have an existing deck in the back of the house, which is very close to the ground. And we are proposing to extend it until we are at the face of the rock outcropping, which you can see in that picture as well. So if I go to the drawings, I am going to start with another photograph, which is, this is the house. Here's the existing deck, and here is a pile of rocks. And we are proposing to take this deck and make it larger so that it will sort of meet that rocky area. Why do we need a variance for this? As you can see, this deck is rather small. It pretty much accommodates one table for 6 or 8 people. And therefore it doesn't really provide the homeowners with a whole lot of space to sort of function. You can also see here that you know, that is the size of the deck, and here you can see how very sloped this area is. So the homeowners just purchased the property this year, and are trying to maximize the amount of sort of a flat backyard space which is available to them, which is, as you can see, limited by the slopes that happen on all the sides of the house. So looking at the actual drawings, what we have is a property which consists of the house, and here is the existing deck, which is approximately 300 square feet. Here you can see the rock, and in this vicinity is where the kitchen is located. So we would like to make this deck larger so it allows them to have not only the table, but also a couple of chairs, have some play areas for the small children, which they have, and just make that more comfortable. We are in fact proposing to take off the existing railings, and because they are truly not necessary for the safety, and just have the deck to be a platform, and possibly add some planters or add some sort of on-grade plantings in the vicinity so that the edge of the deck is concealed. Here's the existing situation, and here's the extension to the rocky area.
So let me ask you about the coverage.
Yeah, so yes.
Where are you on coverage at this point?
Yes, so what's happening is, here are the numbers. That's my next step here. So what's happening is the property has an allowed coverage of 12%. And at this point, the coverage is already 14.72%. That number is not specifically shown here, but it happens to be 14.75%. So how do we get to that number, and why is that coverage relatively high? So the house itself is 9.6% of the coverage, and all the rest of the coverage is really generated by multiple pathways, walkways, and stone walls. Because the property is sloped, a lot of that was managed when the house was initially built in 1997. It was managed by placing in a whole lot of retaining walls and terraces. And the way they situated the house on the property was they generated a large driveway. And then there's a long walkway to the front door and a walkway in the back. And all these little walks and walls and a driveway really generate another 5% of the coverage, approximately. So between the house being less than 10% and the existing walkways, patios, garden walls, stone walls, we have another 5%. So that leaves us with almost 15%. And what we are doing with the extended patio, we're adding 1.25%, and we end up at 16%. And the 16% compared to the allowed 12% is a 33.5% increase. So in a nutshell, the coverage is caused by the slope terrain and by the numerous terrain improvements. It's not caused by bulky structures or large buildings or anything like that. Even the area that we're actually applying the coverage for is a wooden deck, which is in fact permeable, and it's low to the ground, and it's not something that generates an excessive coverage if you look at it. On the lot,
tell you though, that's a big jump in coverage, and doubling the size of the deck. I'm not sure that we can make an argument that that is the least amount that's required to give you more functionality. I mean, part of our mandate is to give the smallest possible variances that we can to achieve methods. And I'm not sure that doubling the size of the deck to put you that far over coverage is something that makes sense for us. I don't know if anybody else on the board has any thoughts.
Sarah, I had the same feeling. I actually had two reactions. I went out there and looked at it.
Yeah, I did too.
And, it sort of makes sense to do that. It's not like it's going to affect anybody. On the other hand, not in addition to what you said, these people just bought this house recently. So they took it with, for want of a better word, constructive knowledge of what the limitations were. And to come right away now and ask for variance, it gives me some pause.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this? Yeah, Judd.
I understand the coverage, and I understand that the retaining walls add to it. I guess my concern is that outcropping of rocks is a nice landscape, and it comes down to the grass. And by pushing that deck back, you kind of lose the the beauty of the backyard. So I just didn't know if maybe a smaller increase to the deck, and I don't know if it could be relocated so you don't lose that beautiful view there on those rocks.
So can I answer?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yes, so we absolutely admire the rock outcropping. And in fact, in getting closer to it, we are trying to sort of give it more prominence and make it more accessible when the family uses the backyard. And we're really just trying to make it part of the scene, because as you can see, it's now separated by a gap that is not usable. And it doesn't, and by the time you bring the deck to the outcropping, you are at the very foot of the rocks, and you can really make it part of the setting. So I think the feeling is to sort of make the most of the beautiful setting. It should be incorporated in a more organic way, as opposed to being separated by these railings. And you know, I have to say that this deck is really, really tiny in terms of everyday use. It's not a deck that would allow more than, you know, 6 or 8 people to comfortably sit there. There is no space for an outdoor furniture or for any play for the children. So it's not like we're taking a very large deck and doubling it. And I would also like to sort of call your attention to the fact that on the scale of similar houses in this neighborhood and the decks that come with these houses, this deck is positively tiny. There are a number of properties here that have much larger deck areas, patio areas, swimming pools, and just many different ways of having that recreational space, because they have the open space. And since this house really just has this much of a usable space, the deck is sort of essential to them, because it's the first thing that you come to when you come out of the kitchen. And so in that sense, it's entirely within the character of the neighborhood, and it is not obviously detrimental to anybody if we increase the square footage of the deck in the backyard. It can't even be seen anywhere from any vantage point. Thank you.
Any other comments from any other board members?
Well,
I mean,
I would just say, in my opinion, I mean, you characterized it as a tiny deck, but that can seat 6 to 8 people. And I guess in my opinion, that seems like a pretty decent sized deck to begin with. I guess I share some of Sarah's concerns about doubling the size of this deck when it's already over coverage. And I wonder if there's any alternative in terms of a slightly smaller increase, or if there's anything other than the retaining walls that you could maybe give up to compensate for the increase in coverage with the deck.
Well, we cannot give up the, retaining walls. I'm just going to briefly go back to the, sort of, I think debating the size of the deck may be subjective, because 6 to 8 people definitely is a company, but, these days with the pandemic situation, people oftentimes resort to the outdoors as the only gathering space. So having actually a usable outdoor space where you can get few more people is very important to people. But so back to the coverage, there's nothing we can do about the walls or about the driveway. We do have a slate wall here, which is occasionally used to access the back of the sort of the property. I mean, we could take a look at that slate wall and see if we could take something off of there, and then that would compensate for some of this added space.
Well, yeah, I guess I'll leave it to you. I mean, we can go ahead and vote on this tonight, and I don't know how it's going to go. Obviously, I don't know what everybody's thinking. I know what I'm thinking. Or you can adjourn it and come back next month with a different plan. I mean, I understand there's always frustration in Irvington over retaining walls being counted. But again, this is not a case where they bought the property and then the rules were changed. I mean, these are the rules that you bought it with. The driveway obviously doesn't count towards coverage. So that's not that's not a factor. But if you want to come back with different plans next month, we can adjourn it. Or we can go ahead and vote on it. So I'll leave that to you if you have a request to make, whether we go ahead and vote or we adjourn it a month.
So I actually am hesitant to say that we would come back next month with a different plan, because I am a little surprised that you would find this extension to be, that sort of massive or onerous or inappropriate, because again, it's just a very low deck, which is permeable. And therefore, I wouldn't be quite sure what is it that we should come back with to sort of satisfy the intent of the board and see what would be approvable. And also, we are in fall, and we really were hoping to make a progress before the winter. So at this time of the year, a month is a lot. So I would prefer if we could spend another few minutes and decide if it would be acceptable to the board members. Let's say if we take 100 square feet of the slate walk and remove it, would that compensate sufficiently for the added area?
We can only vote tonight on what you've given us. So we could vote yes or no on this, or you could come back if you'd like in a month with a proposed plan. I think the number is just too high. That's that much over allowable for me. Again, my fellow board members are free to disagree with me, and we can put it to a vote if you'd like to, but for me, I think this number is too high, and I would prefer you came back, perhaps taking away some of that slate walk. That's up to the homeowners and whether or not they're willing to sacrifice that, and perhaps even a slightly smaller extension. I just think that 33%, which I believe it is, if I read those numbers correctly, over allowable is an awfully high number.
Yes, except that we are already, 9% over, or we're already over allowable as is. So again, we're only adding 1.7%. So it's all relative. But a quick question: if we take a vote and you feel that, well, before I go there, I just wanted to say that some of the size and the shape of the extension was dictated by the location of the rock outcropping. So if we make this smaller, what we're really doing is we are arbitrarily stopping ahead of this natural feature that is going to look its best if it's sort of met with the new deck. Right. In the way that we're proposing. So it was sort of dictated by that existing situation. But so my question is, if we took a vote and if we don't pass, what happens then? Is it
you have to refile with new papers and new plans? You start the process over again.
I see. So I would love to hear what our chances are of passing. I think we have two people.
All I can tell you is the motion that I'm going to make. No. And we do have a long agenda tonight, so I don't think we can give too much more time. I'm sort of trying to throw you a life raft by saying you can come back. Again, I don't know how everybody's going to vote. I'm happy to make a motion and we can see what happens, but I don't think we can spend too much more time on this tonight. It's just we have a very long agenda. We've got a lot more cases to get through. And I don't think there's anything you can tell us right now that's going to change people's minds one way or the other. Again, I don't know what everybody's thinking, but we've seen the papers, we've seen your request. And I think we should either just go ahead on a vote on this or adjourn it for a month.
I had a question.
Yeah.
The retaining walls, do you have the total square footage of what those retaining walls add up to? Just to.
Yes.
wanna-
Yes, we have 0.7% sidewalk, 0.58% of sidewalk, 0.4% front steps,
Oh, no,
1 point,
those are, I'm sorry. The
retaining walls 1.8,
retaining
retaining wall
walls
is 436.
Yeah.
retaining walls 1.8. The existing patio 1.3. All these things add up to about 5% of the coverage, and each one of them is basically essential to the way that property was put together when the house was built in 1997. The walls are what they are. The front door is what it is. There's nothing anybody can do about that. And that's how we ended up in this situation. Yes.
Sarah, I concur. Let's make a decision here.
Yeah.
Does she
all right.
want to take a vote or?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Well, I guess we'll adjourn. I mean, I think that it would be complicated to refile this application. So we certainly would like to have something that the board is comfortable with. And so we'll adjourn to the next meeting and we'll come back with a revised plan.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we adjourn this for a month. Do I have a second? Okay, Charlie, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Do we
You're
keep-
welcome. Thank you.
Anybody all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Hi.
Next, so we will adjourn that. Okay, so the next motion, the next thing in front of us is Core and McClure. Do we have somebody appearing on that?
If you're here representing the application, if you can hit the raise hand button. Okay. Somebody's here.
Okay, great.
Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Crowley. I am the architect here representing Dr. Poor and his wife, Connor. And they are the new homeowners of 25 South Continent, right off of Main Street in the downtown area. So we've been in front of the planning board for the last 3 months, worked out a variety of things. What it's come down to is that we are requesting 3 separate variances from you tonight. One for a rear yard setback, one for FAR overage, and one for lot coverage overage. So I can share my screen and I can walk you through the presentation. Okay, everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
All right, great. So
Brian, are you live there? That looks like daylight out the windows.
yes, no, my office is not as cool as the video looks as a screen. I'm working from my home office in the basement like most everybody else these days. Okay, so 25 South Continent. Dr. Poor and his wife, they bought the place earlier this year in anticipation of their growing family. As of last month, they're now a family of 5. All that we're trying to do is renovate the home to suit their family needs. And that essentially results in us proposing to rip off the existing roof, which is a combination of gables and reverse gables. It just resulted in a very, very choppy second floor plan. Rip the entire thing off, replace it with a gambrel style roof with sheds on the front and back so we can fit 4 modestly sized bedrooms on the second floor. This here is the house in question from the street. This is the house from the backyard.
Okay.
So I can walk you through the plans really quick, but those pictures should give you a decent reference as to what we're talking about. So just to kind of give everybody reference here, This is the house as it sits, existing structure. There is a sunroom. It looked like it was the original deck that had been converted to a sunroom off the back of the house, and then a small deck leading down to the backyard. And for more reference, a couple shots from the backyard. This is what I believe was once a deck, which is now a sunroom. Structure is sound. I'd like to reuse the structure, which is resulting in one of our variance requests for the rear yard, which I'll explain in a moment. But generally speaking, the entire roof comes off. We replace it with a different style of roof, and we convert the sunroom back into an open porch. We just make it a little bit longer along the length of the back of the house. And there's a smaller open deck component on the side of the house. But the 3 variances are going to be rear yard because the face of this house is too close to the backyard as it is. It results in a 2 foot 4 inch variance request, because all we're going to do is, what we'd like to do is take this rear face of the house and just elongate it. So we aren't worsening the condition, we just aren't improving it either. We're just trying to make the minimal amount of impact. In addition to that, there's quite a bit of coverage that we're over. A fair amount of it was undocumented coverage. So one of the things that we had to work through during our planning board iterations was they specifically requested to show us, the documented coverage and the undocumented coverage compared to what we're proposing. So there's variance request is a few hundred square feet over the allowable percentage, we're still improving the overall site condition as it sits today by bit. Yeah, so all this patio, this brick patio, all this hardscape is being proposed to be removed. We're trying to improve the existing condition. Okay, so back to the drawings. Okay, so now I gave you some reference. So again, that's the deck that's being removed. This is what's being proposed, just an unenclosed porch. It just elongates the existing structure. And then we step the deck back. So at least the new deck portion that we're proposing is essentially on the rear yard setback line. That is one. The other one is lot coverage. And again, we batted this back and forth quite a bit. So I'll walk you guys through it so you understand. So I basically just created this chart. There's 2 different hatches. Everything in the lighter hatch is what was documented coverage the town had on file. Everything in this darker hatch is undocumented cover, which is essentially the sidewalk on the walk and all the brick patios and the deck itself. That was all undocumented, but so they asked me to do this. So we had 1441 of documented coverage, an additional 622 of undocumented coverage. That results in a little over 2,060 square feet of site coverage. We are only allowed to have 1366. So we're over quite a bit. If you look at the proposed, so what we're trying to do here is we're going to demolish and remove the entire sidewalk, demo and remove all this existing undocumented coverage in the backyard, just try to reestablish a lawn for the kids to play. But we are still going to be over, this is what we end up with, 1708. We're allowed the 1366, which results in our one variance request for coverage, which is 627 square feet, which is 26% over the allowable. But if you were to look at our adjacencies chart that compares some of the other houses up and down the street, of which all these are, you can see, if you look at this from a comparison standpoint, although we're going to be over, it's pretty in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood. We just kind of go down 116, 110, 123, 110, 113, 105. So you can see the majority of the houses in this particular area are over the coverage. We are certainly improving the existing condition. We're moving several hundred square feet of impervious, but it does result in us still asking for the variance of the 600 and some odd square feet, 627. So, oh, pardon me. I'm speaking to FAR. All those values I was referring to was 342. So by the time we remove the undocumented, we construct the proposed addition renovation, the site coverage variance we are requesting is 342 square feet over the allowable.
And what percentage over allowable is that?
We'll go back to this.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. No problem.
Got a little confused there.
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking at the wrong line item. So coverage 166. So we are going to be 125% over the allowable. So 25%. And then, you know, what's kind of handy with this chart, you can just kind of go down the list and you can see how it compares to the neighbor. So in my opinion, at least, we are in keeping with kind of what's going on in this area.
Seem to be sort of in the middle.
Brian,
Yeah, trying to be. Yep.
Brian, the 1441 existing, that does not include the undocumented, right?
Yes, sir. Correct. So, I mean, one of the things
That's just the documented.
Yeah, so the chairman of the planning board specifically asked me to do this, which I obviously did for him. So this is where the 144 comes from. All the documented, which is the lighter hatch. So it's really,
yeah,
you know, it's like the house proper, the
So
deck.
you're
the
closer
sunroom.
right now to 2,000.
No, ma'am. So all of the
With
existing
undocumented.
coverage, all the existing coverage on the site as it sits right now is 2,063 square.
Right.
So we are reducing that by 355 square feet, which results in 1,708 square feet, which is still 342 over the allowable. Correct. Which, if this is correct, I'd have to go back and double check all this now that we're talking through it. But if this is correct, which it should be, we're about 25. So 125, that's 25% over the allowable. So we're kind of right in that pocket where everybody else seems to be, you know? So that is the site coverage issue. I explained the rear yard. I think I was clear with that. And then the other one is FAR. So if we were to look at FAR, we go back to our little chart, do a little diagram for everything. So this one, we are actually, so the way the house sits now, I didn't have an issue at all. I was right on the money. But then they pointed out that they thought the windows in the basement, these guys here, they thought that sill was too high. And they were right by like 2 inches.
Yeah.
So I had to add that in, which resulted in us in being over the FAR by a few hundred square feet. But, you know, if you look at the existing and the proposed, here's our existing, here's our proposed. Our existing floor area, we're at 2954, which is considerably more than what's allowed. But with all these improvements, we're only changing it to 2982. So we're only adding, 28 square feet of FAR. So we're not, you know, we're trying to stay in keeping with like the direction here to not ask for anything more than we have to make our proposed plans work. And I don't, we've added this around several times. We've been working on this for months now, the homeowners and I don't know what other ideas I can come up with to reduce the overall square footage of the house and still meet their program, which is not that complicated. They're just trying to get bedrooms. They're just trying to put a bedroom upstairs for each kid. That's really all they're trying to do. So it's just by getting rid of the very awkward reverse gable roof lines and all the choppy slope ceilings and just trying to get them more of a square second floor so I can fit all the components in, this is just kind of what it ends up with. So the 3 variance requests in front of you tonight is 1, the rear yard setback, which is just essentially documenting an existing condition. We're not making it any worse. It's just, it is what it is. We're just trying to elongate that rear wall of the sunroom. The second one is the site coverage, which we are improving on, but even though our improvements reduce the coverage by over 300 square feet, we're still over. Although it seems that we're in keeping with kind of what everyone else is doing in the neighborhood from a coverage standpoint. And then the third one is FAR. And then again, I can't make the program work with any less square footage. I've made the thing as small as we can. And again, I mean, they bought the house, they're trying to improve it, they're trying to make it work for their family. We aren't making it, we're adding 28 square feet to the house. It's just what they bought is already well in excess of what's allowed in the zone. So, you know, this is what they bought. And this is what we're trying to turn it into. You know, we're trying into more of like a Cape style gambrel. It'll have a cedar shakes on the exterior. It'll be a very handsome addition to the neighborhood. This is just kind of what it results in. And then this here. So this, if you can see here, this is the sunroom. This is the rear face of the sunroom wall right here.
Mhm.
And you can see how you can put the setback line on.
Mhm.
So if this rear setback is 30, this face here is the 28.4. So we aren't making any worse. We're just taking that line, and instead of the sunroom terminating right here,
Right.
we're just carrying it along the back of the house.
Right.
This dimension holds at 28.4.
Same thing.
And then we just kind of pull it across. Where is it? Oh, that's the back. We pull it across the back of the house. This portion is the enclosed, unenclosed, and this part is just the open deck.
Yeah.
So hopefully I did a decent job explaining all this to everybody. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but that's pretty much it for the presentation.
Great. Are there any questions? Yes, Ken.
Yes, I have two questions. One, the upstairs, you said the homeowners are looking to put 4 bedrooms up there for their children. How many bedrooms are there currently upstairs?
Again, just a very, very choppy layout. So it's like, it has like this massive master and then these 2 bedrooms, but because of the way the roof lines are, well, actually it's 1 big bathroom, 1 small bedroom, and a master. But every one of these rooms has there's 4-foot exterior walls and then sloped ceilings. It's almost impractical usable square footage. So to answer your question, we are turning a 2-bedroom with a bath into four bedrooms with 2 baths. And I'm able to do all that working with the same footprint, so long I can just rip off the roof and put a different style roof on top.
Okay. And the second question I had is you referenced the FAR numbers and the increase was just approximately 28 feet, I believe. And I'm just want to confirm that that increase was over the proper calculation, which the planning board pointed out, rather than your initial calculation.
Oh yes, most certainly. I had to go back and represent this one more time and, prove to them, for lack of a better word, that the coverages and the FARs and all these different calculations are accurate. So yes, to the best of my knowledge, the variances being presented in front of variance requests being put in front of you tonight are as accurate as I'm possible to make them. Yes.
So it's would be an increase of 28 square feet over the current correct calculation.
Yes, sir. And if you were to look at this little diagram I put together, where is it? There you go. Documented versus undocumented. And the reason that this is clouded and changed with a delta 2 is because this was pointed out during our second plan board meeting. And then they they pointed out to me that I had to add the basement square footage, which is so I added to both of these, and this resulted in these final numbers. And the delta between these two numbers, I'm only adding 28 square feet of square foot to the house. It's just much more usable square footage with what we're proposing to do, which is why I'm able to fit so many more components on the second floor.
Great. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you're not changing either the roof height, right? You're just changing the configuration of the roof, right?
The roof height does go up about 13 inches, but we're still well below
within
the overall. Yeah, I mean, even by kicking up the ridge by I think it's 13 or 14 inches, we're still almost 2 feet below the 35-foot building height max. So that's not an issue for us.
Right.
So Brian, I assume I know the answer to this question, but your table of zoning analysis of adjacent properties, I assume the adjacent properties are based on documented and not undocumented square footage?
Well, if you look at where'd it go?
It's your documented and undocumented square footage, but not theirs.
I grabbed it. So basically when I put together these adjacent property matrices, I just go to the village portal and I pull down all the property cards for all 16 properties. Right. And that's where I'm able to get, your areas and your FARs, but there's no other way to do it. But this first note, calculations are based on numbers collected from Town of Greenberg GIS and the property cards. 25% of the total building footprint has been added to the amount to account for walks, retaining walls, and miscellaneous. So short of having every single one of these 16 properties surveyed, and going through a very very thorough analysis of the property. I mean, this is the best we can do. And quite frankly, I found another architect that does a lot of work in your town, and I just looked at how he did it and I copied it. So I mean, hopefully it satisfies you guys.
I don't have any other questions, Sarah.
Great. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, then I will, I'll make a motion. And I'm going to make a motion to approve the variances. As I think Brian kind of pointed out to us, I don't see the rear yard one as being any particular issue, because it's really just, it's legalizing something that already exists there. And I don't see the FAR as a huge issue either. 28 feet, it doesn't seem to me the trade-off between that amount of coverage that we're giving you in terms of FAR and the functionality of the house. I think that pretty much comes down on that not being a terribly big issue. Obviously, coverage is always the thing that kind of we come back to time and time again. 25 is a little high, but we do, the houses in town get a slightly different look because they're all over existing. I mean, everything that's existing is over coverage.
We're trying to improve the condition. We are.
Yeah. It's almost like, it's like a pre-existing condition. Yeah. And even though you are increasing what is, legally on the property that this the applicant bought is actually 300 square feet more coverage than what you are proposing.
350.
So it's at 350. So it's, that's a pretty nice give back.
We're trying,
and I think all things considered, and especially where this property falls in terms of its own neighborhood, in terms of overages, seems to me it's right in the middle, maybe even a little on the low side of the middle. And so for all those reasons, I'm going to make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Okay. Rosie, what do you say?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Judd?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Okay, you are approved. I will send out the letter this week.
All right. Thank you much. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time tonight. Appreciate it. And best of luck with the rest of the meeting.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a nice night. Take care.
You too. Okay, so now we get into our continued matters, and it's Cyrilnik, I believe, 19 Matheson Park. Do we have somebody on that matter?
Oh, there we go. Hello, good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you all?
Good.
Hi, my name is Rad Opatich. I'm the architect for the project. I think online also are joining us Jackie and Andrei Cyrulnik and Natricia Walker from my office. So hi again. We were in front of you on June 22nd. We're back with a slightly revised plan. I'd like to just quickly review the proposed project, which is an addition of 827 square feet, which includes a new two-car garage, replacing the existing garage, two-car garage, new mudroom, and a cabana / family room, which is in addition to the existing structure. Also part of the project is a new garden with featuring a pool that's replacing the existing pool, The new pool is slightly smaller than the existing pool, and a new spa and a lounge area by the pool and an eating area near the kitchen. We are seeking two variances. One is for the gate structure at the northeast of the property. Nat, could you get us the plan, please?
Yep. Share. Can everybody see the plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Nat, maybe you can enlarge it a little bit. So we have this major axis running east-west for the garden, which is centered on the pool. And we have a gate, a trellis gate on both sides of the property of the garden. The one on the left, which is the northeast part of it, is straddling the building setback. Therefore, the height becomes an issue where we're allowed 6-foot height fence, and the trellis gate is 7'2". So we're seeking a variance to allow us to keep that beautiful gate into the garden. The second variance is the coverage, of course. The existing home is, of course, a non-conforming. It's over the allowable coverage by 9.8%. With the proposed addition and garden work, we are proposing tonight an additional 9.9% in coverage, which would bring us to 20.5. Previously, when we showed you this plan, we were at 29.3%, and you had concern with that amount of coverage. We went back and we trimmed everything possible. We made the patio, which is adjacent to the pool, we made that smaller. We made the pool even a little smaller. Then we made all the terracing, the eating area, the terrace, those little islands, as we call them, we drastically reduced the paving in those areas. And then we also scaled back a little bit the patio, which is the eating area next to the house. And that puts us in 20.5% over the coverage, which we feel is very nice for the property. I mean, we don't feel that it's overbuilt. It's very similar to the property just north of us, which is 25 Matheson. You want to take us, Nat, to that map?
Oh, to the map, just a minute. It'll just take a minute to load because it's a big file. I'll start moving my cursor, maybe it'll load. Loading. Oh, this one doesn't show it. Never mind, not that one. There we go.
Excellent. So H is 25 Matheson, which is a slightly smaller property than 19. And the building is slightly bigger than what we're proposing with the addition. And that property, I think it's 28% over the allowable. Nat, is that correct? Can you double check me on that?
Hold on.
Yes, that's 28% over the allowable.
So in terms of, how that feels in real life, I think we are even more subtle than that particular property. I think also online is Andres and Jackie. Are you guys there? Anybody?
Bueller?
I thought they were with us. Maybe they haven't logged in.
They were juggling a bunch of
We actually say
open houses.
just got in the chat. They do say they are here.
Okay.
Okay. In the meantime, we went back and we tried to, streamline everything possible. The garage is a minimum size for a 2-car garage. The family room is, they have 4 kids. It's not over, it's not a large room. It's, it's 15 by just under 20, 19. The mudroom is not, it's nicely proportioned, so lots of storage, but nothing extravagant. So we try to keep the footprint to a minimum. Patricia, do you want to add anything to my?
Yeah, one of the other things that we were juggling as part of the whole approval process, even starting with the planning board, was mitigating concerns with the overall site in terms of how we were going to impact it with what we wanted to add. And at some point, initially, in order to mitigate the coverages, we were looking at possibly modifying these existing terraces, even eliminating portions of this. And that became an untenable situation with planning board because of the potential impact for these very established trees and root systems that are on the property. And also because though getting into modifying portions of the existing terraces here also increased significantly what the limit of disturbance on the property was, to the point that we were on the edge of needing to get into where when you're disturbing like more than, I forget what the percentage is, that then results in needing to go through really extensive and expensive measures in terms of monitoring and reporting in managing the construction project. So limiting the disturbance to the main body of the house and terraces was a valuable and really inherent part of trying to manage what we were doing on the site to preserve the integrity of all of the property characteristics and this existing building, and then also manage the needs for this, young family in using the site to the best capacity possible.
Could you show me that map you were showing me before? I know it took a while to load, but I'd like to see the map of the neighborhood.
Sure.
Can you show me which one is 17?
17. Hold on one second. I just need to find it.
I don't know if you all got a copy, but we did get a letter today from that neighbor.
Oh, yes.
Yes, 17. Okay. Yep. 17 is right here.
Yeah.
And we had spoken to the neighbor yesterday because the owner Cyrilniks had been in touch with, or that neighbor had reached out to the Cyrilniks and expressed that they had some concerns. Mm-hmm. We reached out to that neighbor yesterday, and I actually met with them on site earlier this afternoon. And a lot of their, or a bulk of their concerns with, which they reference in their letter, stemmed from not being clear about where the encroachment was, and also a misunderstanding of what the proposed fence height was, and thinking that we were somehow going to be breaching their rear property line, which is also our rear property line, with what we were intending to do. So we had sent them a diagram that highlighted what is the rear yard building setback line, which is where we have the encroachment with the gate. And that clarified that issue with them, so they were no longer, they understood that they didn't have an issue with that. And also we walked through the rear property line where the proposed pool fence is, and explained that what's going to be there is just 5 feet. They somehow referenced a 9-foot height, which is not anything that's being proposed anywhere near there. And so when we walked through this afternoon with them, they were satisfied that and didn't have an issue with what was being proposed.
We got a letter, and we only got it this afternoon, but I did note that it was written over a week ago. So I didn't know if those issues are still existing or not. And I don't, to my knowledge, they are not on this call, but if you are here, could you make yourselves known, just because I'd like to hear from anybody who wants to be heard on this.
Right, when I met with them, the owner, Mr. Andrella, earlier this afternoon, he had said that he would try and join.
Okay.
Just to.
Well, he's chatting that he's on.
Yeah.
He's here. Yeah, he's here.
Okay. I'd love to hear from
Yep.
him if we can, just because I'd like to know where we stand on this.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Sorry for the feedback. I'm also dialed in on my cell phone, just trying to figure out how to be able to speak. Can everybody hear me okay though?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, yeah, please go ahead. I just wanted you to know if your issues that you raised in that letter, if you still feel that those issues exist or not.
Yeah, so I met with the architects today. They were nice enough to come over and show us the plans as well as the areas of concern. And I think they've all been addressed. I think I might have jumped the gun with that letter a little bit. When I got back from LA, I had this letter in the mail and there were some words referenced in there about encroachment and a 10-foot high fence, which of course made us a little bit nervous. But after meeting with the architects and getting the full explanation of where this encroachment was and where this 10-foot high fence was, it really put us at ease. So at this point, we really have no concerns.
Okay, terrific. That's great. Yeah, it's easy to get your shackles up when you get a letter like that, right?
Yeah, it was tough to correlate.
And it's always better to let us know if you have an issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, terrific. I appreciate you coming on and sticking with us through a pretty long meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Rad or Natasha, could you go back to the lot coverage worksheet?
Yeah, hold on one moment. You mean the tabulation sheet?
Yeah, I'm looking at the one, like I don't have the PDF of what you're showing. I just have the last one. I just want to see what's changed.
Okay.
Right, this is the one, right?
Yep.
All right, so last time you were here, you were proposing 1,227 feet and now in proposed coverage, and now it's down to 679.
Yes.
Right, and you've gone from being 29.3% greater than allowable to 20.5%, right?
Yes.
Right.
And of course, we're one of those where we're already starting out over based on all of the existing characteristics of the property.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions from any other board members or comments? I don't think I wasn't here for the June meeting, so I didn't see this originally, but anything you feel you want to comment on, whether or not your concerns were sort of addressed on this?
Well, so Sarah, at the last meeting, I actually raised a lot of concerns because of the coverage.
Right.
And because most of the neighbors are not over, right? So even, right, And so even and I think they've done a very good job of addressing the bulk of my concerns, but it's still in a neighborhood where most of the neighboring lots are not over.
Right.
Okay, so that, I'm not saying, I'm not giving away my vote yet, right? But that's definitely something that concerns me. I don't know that there's a better way to address it than what they've already done, but I can see the neighbors coming in and over the next few years and saying, well, these guys are at 120%. How come we can't do this?
Right.
To Charlie's point, I also was not at the June meeting, but that chart that showed the neighboring lots, you said the one lot is 128% over. Do you have the data that Charlie's referring to? What are those numbers for all those lots in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I have it. It's not on that particular chart because we're just looking at we just compared what the total lot coverages are. Hold on a moment, I'll blow that up a little bit, but I have the values for what the overage is or what the relationships to allowable are for the other properties.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yes, okay. So for 13 Matheson, let's just go this way, which is B, they are 91.4% over allowable. 15 Matheson, which is C, is 6.8% over allowable. 17 Matheson, which is D, is just under the allowable by 0.66%. 23 Matheson, which is E, where are you? E right there, is under allowable by 6%. 37 Matheson, which is F. F, where are you? F is under allowable by 26%. G, which is 35 Matheson Park. G is under by 12%. 25, which is H, as Red already pointed out, is over by 28%. 27 Matheson, which is I, it's a tiny little guy, is under by 45%. 28 Matheson, which is J, formerly Hurlitz, is under by 3.9%. And K, or the little guy, well, which is no longer there.
No longer there.
Yep, was under by 30%.
Oh boy,
so that was another one of my concerns. And so now you all have the same data we reviewed back in June on lot coverage, on the coverage. So, we need to decide.
Thank you for that information. That doesn't make it easy to approve this. It really doesn't.
For me, H is a good comparison because the size of the lot and the size of the building and how that feels in the neighborhood to what we're proposing, and that feels comfortable in Matheson Park, right? It doesn't feel overbuilt, and it doesn't feel like there's coverage that's detrimental to the aesthetic of Matheson Park. So that to me is a good comparison.
I understand that, but to Charlie's point, how do we treat other applications that come in from these places that are currently under, who want to now, add 30% coverage, so they're just 20% over?
Well, some of them, John, they could add 100% coverage to get to 20% over. Right. They could double the size of their coverage and say, here's a comparable that's at 120%.
Yeah, exactly. No,
right.
I was
well, not necessarily, because there are other factors that would limit that, right? Like the buildings.
Well, that would be our rebuttal if they could come in and make that argument, right?
Well, yes.
Right.
Are there any other comments from any other board members? I mean, I agree with Charlie and John. I appreciate you coming back at cutting off that 9%. That I wasn't here for that application, but that would have been a number that would have been hard for me to contemplate. But even so, it's a little higher than we like to go in general. And in this neighborhood, it's not super comparable. I wish I knew off the top of my head which house 25 Matheson was, because you're sort of making the argument that that looks very good for the property. And just off the top of my head, I don't remember which home that is.
It's the white stucco with the blue trim. Formerly the Midgley property.
Right, okay.
Oh, right, okay.
Michael and Leanna Garcia live there?
Yep, got it, yep. Yep.
If I can chime in just for a moment, because I know we're talking about, and I understand the concerns with the percentage over allowable in comparison to other properties on the lot. But when we also look at what the total lot coverage percentage is for this 19 Matheson Park versus the neighbors, I mean, really in terms of what the coverage is versus total lot, they're right in line. So just, and I mean, we'll circle back, right? Oh, now I moved it and now it's not going to show. Please hold.
Sure.
While it reloads.
While you're waiting to reload, I was just going to comment that I had much bigger concerns the last time around. I do think that the Rolnicks have come back with a more reasonable proposal, and having been to the property again also today, I mean, it really doesn't feel like a large structure. That's I feel like it is kind of consistent with Matheson Park, and I'm definitely more favorably inclined.
Okay, so while that's refusing to load, I can run through the numbers just verbally and maybe hope for the best that it'll actually show up. So, and again, these values are total lot coverage percentages. So where 19 Matheson Park was existing at just under 9%, and what we're 8.9% existing, and then what we're proposing would raise that to 9.84% of total lot coverage. So then as we go down the line in the same order that I read them off before, in terms of total lot coverage, 13 Matheson Park is at 22.97%. And 15 Matheson Park is at 12.82% of lot. 17 Matheson Park is at 11.91%. 23 Matheson Park is at 10.31%. 37 Matheson Park is at 8.87%. 35 Matheson Park is at 10.53%. 25 Matheson Park is at 11.16%. 27 Matheson Park is at 6.19%. 28 Matheson Park is at 11.51%. And our non-existent K was at 5.44%. So yes, in terms of percentage over allowable, what we're looking for is there seems out of context with what the rest of the neighborhood is, but when you look at what we're asking for in the context of total lot coverage in comparison with the neighbors, we're right in the middle of what their percentages are.
Maybe I can also comment. This is Andres Irolnik. So thank you everybody for reviewing our application and taking the time. We believe that not only, as a family will contribute to make a beautiful place for our family, but hopefully also for the park. I think that what Nat just mentioned, it is important when we look at the size of the building, the coverage vis-a-vis land. We are very much in line with every neighbor in the middle. Some are above where we are in how much they have built up vis-a-vis the size on the land and the proportion that is covered. And much of this is actually park. It's not only the structure of the building, but the surroundings around the pool. So one could say, okay, put less grass, put more grass, take one gravel out. We also entertain taking the, as was mentioned, our terraces, but we don't want to damage the beautiful trees next to the property. So for us, that was a very important point that we really discussed with our architects to make sure that we preserve those large old trees for the property. So all in all, proportionally, I think is very much in line with our neighborhood. And we are here to contribute to make the place pleasant for everybody, including our next door neighbors and so forth. So again, thank you so much for looking at this, and I hope that that is taken into account.
So it finally loaded, so you can see the numbers I was referring to.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that is helpful. Anybody else have any comments? I mean, like Ken, I did get down to see the property today.
It's a good day for a walk.
It was a beautiful day, and I agree. It would fit pretty nicely in that neighborhood. It's funny that you point to 25 because that's actually a house I'm pretty familiar with, and I always think it's a little big for the property. It's 28 over %. It's 28. It's not 20. 20.5, and we would like to see those numbers under 20. I have to be honest with you, but and it is a tough one, as both John and Charlie, they're not wrong to point out that it's being over in that neighborhood is unusual. But I do think in a close call for me, I do think that the 20.5% and what you've proposed is reasonable, that you have made a lot of cuts that we sort of encouraged you to make, and have made a lot of minimal walkways and minimal impervious surface. And so I will make a motion to approve if I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All righty. So let's go from bottom up this time. John, what do you say?
With the same trepidations that you so effectively articulated, I vote yes.
Oh, thank you. Ken?
I would vote yes, and I do share John and Charlie's concerns as well, but as you indicated, a close call, and I think it's a yes.
Judd?
Yes.
Charlie?
So I obviously have these concerns, and I ultimately am persuaded by the neighbor that we should vote yes on this, and I vote yes.
Great. Rosie?
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes, so you are approved, and we'll send out a letter this week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your attention on this matter.
Thanks.
Have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you.
All right, so the last matter of the evening is one that has been before us a couple times now. Let me just pull this up. Trying to look on two screens here.
Only two?
Right. Grinberg, Bachman Grinberg, yeah, exactly. She was a little low. My husband's on trial too, so the printer, I'm in the room with the printer and it's constantly going tonight. It's driving me crazy. Hi, John.
Hey, how are you all?
Good, how are you?
Good. So this is a project that was in front of you once before last month for a pool addition. We have made some changes based on the comments to try to reduce the coverage. I will share screen. And we have also made a change that actually eliminates the need for one of the variances that we.
Making our lives easier.
Brian, let's see. Okay, I'm sorry, this is not up. So The pool has been revised. The pool, if we could focus on the pool first, the pool has been revised. Its size has been reduced, and it has been relocated slightly to reduce the requirement of one of the variances. Let me just zoom in there. Sorry. Oh my God, what's going on? It's not letting me zoom for some reason. I think I know why. Hold on 1 second. I have to do things manually. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why the computer is not letting us zoom. So this is the site plan, and the changes amount to are really focused in the area here. So what you're seeing with this curve, these two curved dotted lines, they relate to the rear yard. This first line relates to the rear yard setback. I'm sorry, no, the rear yard setback is actually this little piece right here. And then this curved line here is a side yard setback because it's related to this point. And then this little piece here is a rear yard setback. So the limiting factor for the swimming pool is not the yard setbacks, because the swimming pool is allowed to be in a rear yard or in a side yard if it's far enough back towards the rear. The limiting factor is this line here, the second line, which is the 20-foot pool yard setback. So what we've done, because we've reduced the size of the pool, is we've also slid it out of that limitation. That limitation was an odd condition as a result of the shape of the property. You see how there's a little dog leg that sticks into that property here. So if that dog leg wasn't there, the pool setback would, be back here somewhere. So, but in any case, that is the accurate pool setback is outlined there. So we've reduced the size of the pool and slid it this way to get it out of that area. The reduction in the size of the pool and has brought down the coverage request. So at the moment, originally we had a request that was over 300 square feet, and that's been reduced by 83 square feet. So not quite a third, but on its way to about a third. Of that 219 square feet that we're asking for that remains, 76 of it is related to this play structure over here, which we believe is kind of a temporary structure, but that's what it's related to. And then 24 of that is related to the pool equipment pad, which is this little pad here that's holding the pool equipment. And about 12 is related to the stepping stones that are associated with the front door. I mean, not the front door, but the side door. So the actual difference between the swimming pool and the patio that's there right now is about 100 square feet. So if if we could characterize the change as what we're asking for, it would be an expansion. One way to think about it would be it's an expansion of the existing patio by about 100 square feet. This pad here and this piece of play equipment, and that together adds up to 219 square feet. So when we last met, there was concern in general about the character of the neighborhood and whether this was inconsistent with that character. And to try to ease that concern, we expanded the zoning analysis that we did, neighborhood zoning analysis. I'm going the wrong direction. So we expanded the neighborhood zoning analysis to include properties that had swimming pools in the neighborhood. And we tried to keep that analysis in the area of in the 1 family 40 zone. And I think part of our discussion last time was that though this neighborhood between Ardsley and Hudson, and even on the other side of Hudson between Langen, is an R40, I mean, is a residential 40 zone, the majority of the properties are half that size or less. And that as a result of an upzoning about 10 years ago, it means that most properties are significantly over allowable. I think there was a question last time whether a pool on some of these half-size properties was atypical. And this expansion, we tried to show you that condition. So you see in properties like W and R and S and U and even Q and I, all of these, T down here in the bottom, all of these properties are relatively small and have swimming pools, and their coverages are, their coverages for those additions that we looked at are in the range of 160 to 240 to almost 300 in some cases. So again, I think the reason that you see coverages that are so high in this neighborhood have to do with it sort of being overzoned, in terms of what the actual lot size is in general, and the fact that it was developed under an earlier code which allowed undersized lots to have 4,800 square feet of coverage. So those were the things that we addressed. We basically tried to reduce that coverage allowance, eliminate that variance so that there would be sort of less of a drag on the property. We did that by reducing the size of the pool and eliminating as much coverage as we could associated with the pool. And I think that's what we're hoping, that it's clear that the proposed pool is within the character of the neighborhood, doesn't have any undesirable change for the neighborhood, and that also that the actual change is relatively insubstantial, even though the percentage might seem quite high. It is about a 200 square foot change, and all of that change is related to either temporary structures, which the play structure, I know you guys, it is regulated by the village, but that's sort of atypical in most cases to treat that as a building.
Could you just make this page a little bigger so I could read the chart of adjacent properties?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, much better.
It's zooming now. Acrobat is zooming. I don't know why it wasn't before, but there you go. So we think that the coverage request is not, we wouldn't consider it substantial for a few reasons, because some portion of it, the 80 square feet, is related to the play structure, which I don't think is something that should be concerned for in terms of pervious surface or that, and it is visually screened, and the rest of it is work that is flat on grade. So like in discussions on earlier projects today, I think some of the concern about coverage and maybe precedent setting, a variance of coverage that's related to something that's flat on the ground is a very different animal, I think, than something that is related to a building.
Anybody have any questions for John?
I'm not sure this is a question for John, but the letter that I think we just saw today from a neighbor objecting to this.
Wasn't that for 19 Matheson?
Yeah, I don't think that was for this.
That was 19 Matheson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have the wrong notes here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yes, Judd.
John, just to clarify, the number 5 with the sort of the bubble, are those homes with pools? What's the?
So that's, we had done when we originally submitted it, the analysis just went to letter N.
Okay.
So the bubble below, right, is as properties that we found that have similar conditions that are pools but are in the same neighborhood. So that's the expansion. Yes, the bubble around this lower section here.
And they all have pools?
They do.
Okay. All right. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry.
You just added the ones that have pools. You didn't add their neighbors that didn't have pools in this group, right?
Let me see what we did. I think we drew a new rectangle. Yeah, no, I think we focused more on the pools rather than expanding the analysis in general. I think though, if you looked, Charles, you get similar, the fact that the neighborhood is undersized, like if you look in this area between Q and S, this house is probably in the same category, and these two are also on very small lots. So I don't think, that you'd find a different condition.
Right.
So.
Can you just expand this a little bit? I want to see that chart again. John, just, yeah, sorry, this chart. I'm sorry, make it, yeah, because I'm old.
I'd like to see what the 5 notation is at the bottom. So you're just a little too big, or move it up a little bit, John.
Sorry, yeah.
Down, yeah. Right, that's it. I want to see what that says.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I can make it a little smaller, but I know people are reading, so I don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to know if anyone has any feelings on this. I mean, I got out there today. I know Ken did as well. 178 over allowable is just, it's a big number. I understand that these numbers are all at some place over allowable, and look, the property as is 169 over allowable, but that's a really big number, especially for a property that's just been acquired in the last year or so. And I got to tell you, when you go out and see it, it feels like you're using every inch of the property. I don't know if anybody else has any feelings on this or has been able to see it, or it feels like it's 100. It feels like it's 69% over allowable as is, and to add more.
Right. I mean, if I would jump in there, I would. I know the percentage is high again. I guess our argument is that the percentage is consistent with the neighborhood. So in that sense, as a baseline of change, if you were saying it's 179 and everybody else was at 100 and it was somehow inconsistent with the general character of the neighborhood, I think I would agree, Sarah. But the fact that I don't believe it's inconsistent with the neighborhood, and then also I think that the percent, and also that the coverage that's being proposed, or the change in coverage, is really related only to flat work, right? Which is something that has no effect visually, has no effect visually off-site, has no effect from a stormwater management effect, because the project includes stormwater management that far exceeds the impact of the additional square footage. And I think the criteria that would typically be used for reviewing an area variance, if you went through that criteria, I think the request meets all of that, basically character of the neighborhood. I think the concern about the percentage is one way of interpreting whether this is substantial. Another way to interpret whether it's substantial is to, simply understand the difference of, what's there in terms of a patio and what it would mean to add, approximately 100 square foot of additional patio, and whether you would consider that a substantial change that would somehow change the character of the neighborhood. I don't think it's the case. And again, I think it would be a different argument if the baseline were different, if the neighborhood was not up zone like this. I think, for me, the starting point for what would be considered out of character would be if there was some examples of if the development pattern was not in the neighborhood was not originally related to that larger number of 4,800, and I think the development pattern was based on that 4,800. There's a countable number of houses. I don't even know if there might be 1 or 2 that have been developed since that change in zoning. So the character of the neighborhood is related to a 4,800 square foot allowable.
Yeah.
So Sarah, my thoughts,
Yeah.
with sort of the additional houses that are included, you know, that have been added since the previous charts is it doesn't change the goalposts at all, right? This addition will be exactly at the median, or maybe just above the median in terms of percentage of allowed based on his chart, right? So we're not really moving the goalpost for anybody who's coming down and wants to do something else. And it really is a small impact on the patio. Like it's just, he's making the patio a little bit bigger. And so basically he kind of did what I asked him to do at the last meeting. So, you know, I don't think it really, it is a big number, but they're all big numbers, right? And he's got 25 comps and he sits right in the middle or just slightly above the middle. So I'm not as concerned as I was last week or last month when he was at, you know, 4,500 square feet and 182%.
Right. No. This is a much better application. I agree with you. There's no question about it. It's just it's a tough number to go to. Does anybody else have any input on this?
I just have a question. Are we also being asked to approve the play structure in the Broadway buffer? Is that part of the application?
Oh, that's
it is currently right now. Yes. So it's the play structure is being calculated as part of the 219 of additional coverage, and it's also in the Broadway buffer. Yes.
Yeah, I walked by the property. It's quite a large play structure. I mean, it is very visible, both from the front and from Broadway.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have the owners. I think the owners are on the line. Based on our last discussion with them, they did want to still request the Broadway buffer, variance. I think, you know, they are here. Probably I would ask them to speak on that if that's your concern. I was hoping, Rosemary, that maybe we could address the two issues separately, not to extend the meeting, but I thought they kind of, you know, they're kind of two separate concerns.
Well, I was just asking if that was still part of the application.
It is still part of the application. Okay. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. So that there would effectively be 3 variances then. So there's a coverage variance and no, there's 2 variants. I'm sorry, a coverage variance and a Broadway buffer variance for that play structure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'll just say I was going to sort of get to that as well, because obviously the coverage is, you know, I think the issue that we always spend a lot of time on. I hear what Charlie's saying, and for all the reasons that he is mentioning is why I'm sort of struggling with it, because it's such a huge number. But he's right; it does sort of fall right in the middle of this neighborhood in terms of coverage and percentage of lot and everything. But to turn to the play structure, I don't know if everybody else is done with sort of coverage and knows where we stand. This would be the second Broadway buffer variance that we've given you. And I'm not enthusiastic about giving another Broadway buffer variance. That's just my own opinion. I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on that. Anyone else have any feelings about that?
I'm on the same page as you are, Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think during the last meeting, I thought they said that they might consider relocating the play structure.
Yes, and I think one of the potential locations would be to relocate it out of the buffer into the area where the pool is. I'm just going to try to pull back. Or I think it would be fully screened. Or it might be fully screened. I think one of the areas would be to locate it. There's a lot of stuff in here, notes and stuff, but there's really just a lawn in this whole area to the side of the pool. So there's existing screening that would remain around a fence, and this whole area here is lawn. So that would be an opportunity to get it out of the pool buffer. out of the Broadway buffer, I'm sorry.
And then John, as long as I'm just speaking, the original zoning for these lots was 4,800 square feet. Is that right?
So the lots, that's the standard lot coverage amount for a, one family 40, which is basically the acre lot, the 40,000 square foot lot. And so initially the way the zoning code was written in Irvington, there wasn't a penalty for undersized lots. So if you had an undersized lot if you had a lot that was half the size in an acre, you still had 4,800. And I think the thought associated with that from a planning perspective is that if you had a neighborhood that was relatively consistent, just because one of the lots was smaller, you wouldn't want a house that was half the size. They were very focused on sort of a consistent, in the 50s when that was written, they were very focused on like a consistency of the house size. So the change didn't change the actual zone. What the change did is said you're penalized. You basically only get your coverage based on the size of your lot. So if you had a lot that was half the size, instead of 4,800, you would get 2,400. And the fact that most of the lots are half the size, the entire neighborhood is half the size, that basically they've all been reduced by half, and that's why you're seeing those numbers that are so large. That change in zoning was not really focused on this neighborhood. It was village-wide. So it's sort of a result of a zoning change that probably didn't consider the impacts that it had here. What probably would have made sense would be to rezone this neighborhood at the same time that you made that change.
Okay, any other questions or concerns, issues, comments?
We have a comment, Sarah. Is it okay for us to?
Sure. Yep. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Sarah and Ken, you guys walked the property earlier. I think, you're right. This is the second time that we're going in front of you to ask for the Broadway buffer. I do think the first time was, more of a safety concern because our house was the only one in our immediate vicinity that didn't have a fence around it. To be fair, I think we've been vocal about this with putting up the place up. We never realized that this is something that, we would need variances for and, have to take coverage into account. I think when we talk about, the neighborhood and impact in the neighborhood, when we walk around with the family, there are basically these structures in every other backyard, right? And I could probably give you 3 or 4 properties in a 1 to 2 block radius that have it within the Broadway buffer. So it never really occurred to us, but obviously very happy to have the discussion.
And sorry, just to add in terms of, I think Rosemary, you had the concern about, the size of the structure. When we had gone out to buy it as first-time homeowners, we had actually asked those neighbors what were the structures and tried to get the same one so that they would be consistent in the neighborhood. Just to add that it's actually their smallest model within that brand. So just, as a side note.
And then Rosemary, to follow up on that, you just on the screening point as it relates to the structure. So, Sarah and Ken saw it firsthand, but I think that part of the property, the Broadway buffer point, that's the part that has the mature landscaping there, right? So those trees have been there from the beginning. I think most of them cover the playset completely. I think the alternate structure that John referenced, kind of on the Ardsley side of the property, next to where we're proposing the pool, I think while that's out of the Broadway buffer, I think the impact to the neighborhood is probably greater if we move it out of the current location there, right? Because that's those are newer trees. You'd likely see it from Broadway. You would definitely see it from Ardsley. So I think the corner where it's tucked away is probably the one where you could probably see it the least from the property.
And it's a very temporary, structure. Like it is not one that we plan to keep there for, 15 years. Our kids are, while fairly young, one is turning 6 and another one is 1. The 1-year-old will use it maybe for 1 or 2 years, and then the 6-year-old, loves parks. We don't feel comfortable sending him to parks just yet with COVID, but realistically, it is not a permanent structure. It's not nailed down to the floor. It's only held down by its own weight. So it's very easily taken apart. It's, we saw it as a piece of furniture that could be moved around. So hopefully, that gives some comfort that it's that square footage and coverage that's associated with that will not be there, for the duration of us living in the neighborhood.
Oh, it's easily moved.
Yeah.
We can move it.
It's not nailed down. It's just posts that stand, and it's just held down by the posts. Like it's not nailed into the ground.
It's held down by its own weight, essentially.
Yeah, I'm sure I had one in my backyard when my kids were young.
Right. So there are alternatives. I think the one that's most feasible is the one that John pointed out. But to my earlier point, I think the impact for the neighborhood and being able to see it from multiple angles, in my personal opinion, and I do appreciate the Broadway buffer plan, but I think the least visibility for the structures in this one location.
For the limited time that it'll be there.
Right, but you don't need a variance to put it in that other place.
Understand.
Right.
Yep.
I'm curious. I was out at the neighborhood at the house today. From the inside, it certainly looked like there wasn't an issue with, there were mature trees all around it. It was tucked away in the corner. I thought it would be okay, but I am curious. I mean, Rosemary mentioned it being visible from Broadway, and that would be important. And I didn't even think to take a second look from Broadway. So I'm just curious, Rosemary, what you thought, or if anyone else had a comment on the visibility from Broadway.
Yeah, I mean, I had just both walked by the front, but then also driving on Broadway. I mean, it's not, I mean, again, you can see it. It's not, I mean, I don't know how one can describe degrees of visibility, but you can see it.
Yeah, and it's in the buffer. Anybody else have any comments before I make some kind of a motion? John, do you have any comments?
Well, just, I mean, procedurally, the fact that it might be moved in a year or 2 years, I don't think should be a factor in any decision we make now. I mean, we have to take things as they are. And if
We're not going to give a variance.
maybe it should be moved now.
Yeah, we don't give a variance based on time periods anyway. So it really, if we give the variance, we give it. If we don't, we don't. But there's no sort of time frame. But I think that's a good point. Anybody else have any comments? All right, it's late. So I'm gonna, not even sure procedurally that I've ever done this before, but I'm gonna make 2 different motions. The first is going to be to approve the swimming pool. I was out there today. It is really a very modest sized swimming pool. And I appreciate the give back on the patio. As John said, essentially it's adding about 100 square feet. Under normal circumstances, I really would not be in favor of going to 78% over, but as that chart did kind of show us, it does put it sort of smack in the middle of this neighborhood, both in terms of overage and in percentage of the lot that's covered. And so, with a little hesitation, to say the least, I will make a motion to approve the pool both for coverage and for the side yard issue. Do I have a second for that motion?
I second it.
Okay.
I don't think you need it for the side yard, right, Sarah? I think at this point, is it just the coverage?
It's still on our agenda as a side yard. Is that right, John?
I think the thing that, the way that the pool, there's a section of the code that talks about pool location.
Yeah.
It gives the pool setback, but it also says that it has to be in the rear yard.
Correct.
But it doesn't refer to it as a yard. So I think you still need to confirm that this location is okay.
It's essentially affirming the location.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Rosie, what do you say?
With some of the same reservations, I vote yes.
Okay. Charlie?
I vote yes.
Judd?
Yes
Yep.
on the coverage.
Yep. John?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Okay, the second motion I'm going to make is to deny the play structure in the Broadway buffer. I think the Broadway buffer is something the town has let us know just through the way the code is constructed that they really value. And we have done for you what we've done for other people, which is allowed fences because of safety concerns. But anything that doesn't need to be there, we have denied in the past. I mean, we really have drawn a pretty firm line on that in my time on the board. And so I'm going to vote to deny that variance. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay. And we'll start with Judd. What do you say?
I agree. I deny. I thought they were going to relocate it in this proposal. So
that's what they can do. Yeah. Okay. Charlie?
I support the motion.
Okay. Ken?
Same. Support the motion.
John?
Yes.
And
On the
Rosie?
motion.
Yes on the motion.
Okay. So
can we just clarify one thing? So we're allowed to move it somewhere within the property as long as it's out of the Broadway buffer, right?
Right, because we've approved the coverage. So that would include the coverage for the play structure, but it can't be in the Broadway buffer.
There, and one last thing, I think and I'm not sure that this is going to matter, but I think the reason that Rosemary may have seen it from Broadway is because it has kind of a rainbow colored roof on the play structure, which could be changed to green. And I think at that point it would blend in fully with the planting. Not sure that it matters, but I think that would help with the screening.
Yeah, I really don't think that we can approve anything kind of extraneous in the buffer. Anything that's not a safety issue, we've really, really strongly stayed away from.
No, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, there we go. So you will get a letter to that effect this week.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and thank you everybody for hanging in there. It was a long one.
Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.